What's happening, legends? All right, welcome back to the Becoming Reborn podcast. Today, we've got Chris from CVD Glass. Now, straight away, address the elephant in the room, and this is what the podcast is going to be about: is not judging a book by its cover. Now, I recently, I'm doing a bit of work with CVD Glass. He did all of our glass at Reborn, but then also he's one of our sponsors for our 9 tournament coming up very shortly. And we got chatting one day, and I was actually blown away by the in-depth conversation we had, in particular about business. So, Chrissy, run us through, what's the Chris story?
Yeah, look, I grew up in Western Sydney. Born and raised out in Collerton. Grew up in Mount Druitt with a lot of Islander boys. Played footy for St Mary's. Did my high school years out there. Went to a private school out in Cranebrook for year 9 or 10 before I went to Wyndham College out in Quakers. I grew up in an area where you had to stand on your own 2 feet. I boxed as a kid, age of 16 until probably about 17, 18. I had about 25 boxing fights. So I've got a lot of friends in the boxing community.
Wow.
Yeah, I did go to try out for the Olympic Games. So not the Olympics, but the Australian titles. I actually fought twice. I fought one night up at Central Coast. I won a schoolboys title, and the next morning I had to weigh in and fight for another fight. Unfortunately, I got knocked out in the second round.
Filthy.
That's what happens when you sit in a sauna for 2 hours before you got to go and box.
It's not a good way to prepare, but well done.
But besides that, I finished my HSC. I've been self-employed now since the age of 21, 39 at the moment. So, been in the glass and aluminium industry since I was about 13. Followed my dad. Then when I was doing my HSC, I also worked for a company called Bradnam's. Windows and doors, and went through that whole place. Worked in the office, worked in the factory, and became an estimator at the age of 19 and started CVD about 14 years ago. And before that, I was working with my dad on the PCV, and I was a director with him.
How good. So your childhood, did you get in much trouble?
Yeah, look, I was a fat redhead kid, right? Yeah, I was a fat redhead kid.
Angry. That's angry.
Self-diagnosed ADD, but I mean, kids pick on you. We copped it a little bit back then, and I remember my dad always telling me, if somebody picks on you, punch him in the nose. So
tell my sons the same thing.
Well, that's what I did, and then you get to high school, and if somebody picks on you, don't punch him, tell the teacher. But by that time, it's too
far gone. Too far gone.
But look, growing up in Mount Druitt with a lot of Islander boys, you have to stand your own.
Yep.
Right. So at the age of 16, I started boxing, and that was really to, not to teach myself how to fight, but really to curb my ADD anger, or be able to have some self-control, and it did me wonders.
Yep. Through that period, did you get yourself into any more trouble just outside of school? Were we running in those kind of circles?
Oh, look, I was running in those circles. I wouldn't say I was
a part of
in those. If you're a part of it by association, right? Yeah. So, look, I had a lot of mates that did a lot of questionable things. I wasn't that way inclined because, obviously, I just wasn't made for that, right? So, I never was. But we had a really good friendship with a lot of the boys. It's a bit of like a brotherhood. I didn't get myself – I got no criminal record, never got involved in any of that stuff. Obviously, I was around it. But yeah, I was.
You look the part, though.
I do look the part. Yeah. I cop it all the time.
Yeah.
But I was always business focused because I started with my dad in business. So I if I was going to go down that wrong path, I was going to take my parents with me.
Yeah.
And there was a time in my life where I did have my parents have to pull me up. And I did have to change my circles.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I was going to lead down a very bad path.
I love that. And we're only a couple of minutes in it, and you've spoken about your dad a fair few times now. How much of an influence was he, obviously in your life, but in terms of business? Yeah,
look, massive. I learned a lot at school. I did business studies. But I think, both my parents moved here in 1984 from Holland, the Netherlands, and my dad was just a hardworking man, right? As a lot of the immigrants coming from Europe were. I just followed him. I mean, when I was a kid, we had a push lawnmower and he made a chair for me to sit on the lawnmower. I was like his ghost. Like I always wanted to follow him, you know.
Love that.
And now having a son myself, you know, I want to do those things with my son too. I mean, I'm sure you'd resonate with that, right?
Yeah, like you just talking about your dad in business. I never went into business with my dad though, but I remember growing up and just watching my dad do what he did, right? And my dad was insurance, and he actually had his own office at our house. He built like a granny flat, and had his own office there. So I remember watching Dad all the time, doing all these different, you know, meetings and going from one place to another. And I just thought that was normal, like owning your own business. And I feel like that's fed into like my entrepreneurial kind of mindset. Do you think your dad had the same kind of effect on you?
Yeah, look, I think he did. I think work with him did teach me a lot. I had to learn a lot of things along the way as well myself. Particularly the way you deal with difficult situations with people. I remember being 19 years old, an estimator, architects not willing to listen to me when I tell them that their plans don't work. Right, you can draw something on a piece of paper, but you're not necessarily can you build it.
Yeah.
Those things that I would be able to go back and speak to my dad about and go, hey, Dad, can we make this? And get experience that way. He was very a hands-on type of guy. He wasn't a very, deal with clients type of person. So I learnt the whole technical side from him. And his biggest principles was turn up when you say you're going to turn up. So if we say we're going to be there at 7, we're there at 7. Not, I got a car, I got a flat tyre, my car broke down, dog ate my keys, I'm hungover. There's no excuses, right? So really having a no excuses mindset. And also a big saying that Dad and I have is if you stand still, you die, you know. And what that refers to is sometimes in business you've got to take risks, even though they have to be calculated.
Yeah.
But if you don't take that risk and take that leap, you're going to stand still, you're going to die.
Does it mean you talking about that the other day? You got to risk it to get the biscuit?
Yeah, my big saying I got from my mate Jeff, who owns a very successful roofing company as well, Sydney Metal Prestige. His biggest saying is, if you want the biscuit, you've got to risk it.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd know that, right?
Well,
look, we are.
Yeah, you're a part of this build, so you watch the whole thing come about.
Yeah.
It was a long process, and you've just got to back yourself in those situations. Take us back to the when you're 21, you go out on your own to go CVD Glass.
Yeah, shit. I think it would have been CVD Glass formed when I was about 23, 24 years old. I think. 26 years old. So it's 13, 14 years now. So, but 21 years old, like I was going out partying.
Yeah,
you know, I was doing a lot of things that people at 21 years old does. You know, go to the pub, spend all your money, get drunk, get wasted, enjoy yourself with your friends. But I always had to get up that next day. I still remember my dad knocking on my window. You know, I didn't get up for my alarm and dragged me to work.
That would have been rough.
But yeah, it was very rough. But it was that you say you're going to be there, you got to be there.
Your word's your word.
So it didn't matter if you were sick. I mean, I still remember I had a shoulder reconstruction, and it was a day after my shoulder reconstruction, and had my arm in a sling, and we won a job at Ingleburn RSL. It was like a $95,000 fit out. I was on a step ladder the next day with a drill after the operation.
No way.
I had to, self-employed.
Yeah, it's a bit like that, isn't it? So when did the dream start that you wanted to start CVD Glass?
So that actually formed. So we had a bit of a troubling time when it was my dad's company. We had a client not pay, and
you hear this so often.
Back then, it's you do all this work and the client doesn't pay. It's like you then need to chase them with legal. And then you spend a lot of money legally. So then Dad spent almost all of his super, about 90 grand, chasing this client to pay us 15,000. They call it throwing good money against bad money.
Yeah.
Bad money is what they owe you. Good money is the money that you have to chase that, that you shouldn't really throw that after it. So anyway, things weren't going right. So I said to Dad, look, what I'm going to do, I'm going to start my own company. I'm going to pay out all your debt to your suppliers, which I did. And I'm going to refinance all your leases that you have on the vehicles. So pretty much I've just helped him because it was going the wrong. Like it wasn't the court case was going well, but it was like the next stage you'd have to put up another 90,000.
Yeah.
Where do you draw the line? So I pretty much started CVD, paid out all my dad's debt because I'm a big believer in making sure you don't owe anyone money.
Yeah.
I think in business it's extremely hard. We've had it many years. We've done work and clients didn't pay us 60 grand, 100 grand, and you lose the money and you've just busted your ass all year for it, So I formed CVD. And then it was pretty much, we were in a 195 square metre factory and I said, all right, we need more space because I went out and won a $500,000 school project because we were big in the commercial space and we've got a very well established brand and name in the industry. And I needed more space, so we moved. So doubled the space of the factory.
Wow.
3 years after.
I was going to say, how long?
We stayed there for almost 3 years and then we doubled it again.
Wow.
To 750. Within sort of 2.5 years, we needed more space. We're now where we are now, which in total is 850 square metre factory space, but another 1,000 square metre yard fenced in.
Wow.
So I'd say that we've got roughly 2,000 square metres with an office and everything there. To within 12 months saying, right, I need to open up a showroom.
Yeah, you got the showroom as well.
Yeah, so 5 years ago I moved to Cronulla. And I just wanted to get out of Western Sydney, and I had a pivotal moment in my life. I went through some personal things, and I had to make a decision.
Yeah.
It was either I stay where I am. I'm surrounded by, even though they're close friends and that I see as my family, but a lot of guys didn't have the same aspirations that I did.
Yeah.
And they were involved in, you'd say some colourful things
Yep.
that I wasn't involved in because I was a businessman. But essentially, if you're hanging around those things, sooner or later, you become what you hang around.
You're the product of the five. You're the product of the five closest people you hang around.
Yeah, and your environment.
Yeah. Now, through that 5 years, and I'm sure there's thousands, but can you pinpoint one or two moments that were pivotal challenges where they changed the course of the direction that you were going in, like a decision you made or, a lot of the times it's the hardest times that you didn't see coming that you end up getting through that end up being the most important moments. Were there any key moments like that throughout CVD's Glass's business career?
Yeah, look, there's a few. I think first of all was my personal life because, as I say, my dad's always told me you need to make sure that your backyard's clean, right?
Yeah.
So I needed to be happy. For me to be happy, then the business can thrive. So I moved to Cronulla, I got my head straight and just sort of blocked everybody else out and kept to myself, which has been great. But in the moment that we had COVID, I had to really pivot the business. And I think I'd have to say that even though COVID was the most challenging time for everybody in the world,
Yeah.
it was probably a blessing in disguise for me because I met my now beautiful wife, who I share a 9-month-old son with. I'm very grateful for that. And she's an inspiration to me. She's actually a sounding board. Yeah. She's a successful businesswoman as well. But she helps me. Sometimes I'm a bit of an irrational thinker. And maybe that's the ADD, right? I do make all decisions now without any emotion. I think that's 100% what you need to do in life, especially in business. But she's a great sounding board and she gives me a different perspective and point of view. So meeting her was a pivotal moment in my life, but it wasn't just that. It then spawned, I pivoted my business from commercial only. So we never did any residential windows or doors. We didn't do high-end luxury homes. I got burnt doing that before, so I didn't do it. We only did schools, RSL, government buildings, shopping centres, high-end stuff.
Big
so
stuff.
I'd probably say Miranda Westfield, you know Miranda, right? Yep. I've probably done about 40 shops there. So when they first built Miranda, my company was one of the companies that did all the fit outs. So we did Optus, we did Swarovski, we did a lot of Country Road, we did a lot of shops there, and that's predominantly what we focused the business in. Now in COVID, we were doing a private school down at Griffith, and what a lot of people don't know is the payment terms doing commercial is a lot different. It's you do the work, then you wait till the end of the month, and then you wait another month to get paid. So it's essentially 60 days, sometimes 90 days. So you've got to cash flow these projects. Now, when COVID hit, they stopped us from working, and I had to get really I had to really stay up to date because they barred all my guys from Western Sydney from going out country.
Yeah, that's right, because you can leave more than 5 kilometres.
But my factory was there. But I lived in Cronulla. So I drove to Cronulla, I picked up my truck, and that day, because overnight they pretty much said, it's 5K, blocked.
Yeah.
So I rang my dad because he lives in Mudgee, and I pretty much drove from Cronulla to St Mary's, picked up the truck. My dad left Mudgee because that wasn't a red spot area, and he drove to Griffith. And I picked up the truck and drove to Griffith. I rang an old apprentice that lives at Wagga, and we kept working. So I really had to be creative, right?
Yeah.
And then after that, I said, this is becoming extremely difficult. There's a lot of guys in the industry that are startups, aren't compliant, don't have the proper insurance, aren't members of the Glass and Glazing Association, aren't as passionate as I am about being strict to Australian standards.
Yeah.
And I said, right, we're going to go into the high-end residential market.
Yeah.
So I spoke to my wife and I was like, all right, I need a showroom. I need an office too, because I was driving to St Mary's every day.
Yeah, I remember.
For 3 years.
Yeah. Remember when I first chatted to you when you were starting this, I was like, and I messaged you one morning and you wrote straight back. And I was like, no one writes back.
You're the only crazy one up.
Yeah, and I'm like, you're up it as well. You were on your way out to St Mary's one morning, and this is when this build was happening, and I was on my way to train, and you were already on your way to work, and I was like, wow, that's impressive. So you're driving all the way out there every morning.
Every morning. I've been getting up at 2:30 every day now, except for obviously the weekends that I don't work. But every day now for the last 4 years, I've been getting up at 2:30 in the morning.
What time do you go to bed? We'll discuss this.
I probably, look, once 8 o'clock hits, I want to go to bed. But obviously, my wife wants to spend time with me as well because it's
the balance.
It's the balance. And sometimes I go to bed by that time, or sometimes we sort of watch some TV together and spend some time together. Look, I wouldn't say it'd be any more than 9 o'clock. I'm out.
Out cold.
5 hours a night.
You're a superhero to get to 9 o'clock at night.
Yeah, I don't think I'm a superhero. I think I think it's a lot of coffee, but look, you have to do what you have to do.
Got to do it.
I mean, what time do you start in the morning?
I'm up at 3:20. Mm-hmm. I go to bed. I want to be asleep by 7:20. So that's the goal every night. Yeah. So I put last night. I was actually telling the boys before I was putting Miami down. She's 2. And I was laying down with her, and when I was laying there, I started falling asleep, and then I woke up to her poking my eye, going, wake up, Dad. And I'm like, no, go to sleep. And then I just shut my eyes again, and she goes, no, wake up. Yeah, so that's my kids go to sleep later than I do, but my kids have just kind of followed what I've done over the years.
Yeah,
and they just follow my routine. I walk up to bed at around 6:30, and then have a shower, brush my teeth, all that kind of stuff, and they just kind of follow suit.
Yeah.
So we live different lives to most people, but like you said, we got to do what you got to do. That works for my lifestyle, and it seems to be working really well for you as well. Now, this is a question without warning. Now, you've been through all the highs and lows of normal businesses, and there's plenty of them.
Yep.
What would your 3 tips be to anyone that wants to start a business tomorrow? What would the 3 things you're like, I wish someone had told me that back when I was 26 years old before I started?
In today's, as in 2024,
they want to start
now. Get all over AI.
Yeah.
Research AI. Use it to the fullest ability, because I can tell you, you will save a lot of time, money, and effort with that.
Oh, can you imagine if we had AI back then?
It's crazy.
It's like having a second you assistant times. It's like having 10 of you.
I'm working on some confidential projects at the moment, and I can tell you now, if I can pull these off, which I've got high aspirations for in the next 3 to 6 months, it's a game changer.
Wow.
Massive.
Love that.
You can have AI sales rep for you that can text message potential clients and have a full-blown conversation, and they wouldn't even know.
You teach them the language, right?
You teach yourself, right?
It's scary where things are going, man.
Definitely. But if you're not up with it, you're going to be left behind.
Yeah, agreed.
So number 1 would be definitely technology. get your head around technology and what's available to you.
Yeah.
You need to have a sounding board. You need to have supportive network around you.
Yeah.
Every person, every business person I speak to, it's so important that you have a supportive network and you cut out the negative people. Okay,
That's a huge one.
that's hard.
Yeah.
Because sometimes those negative people are family, and
Yeah.
you have to. Bobby Castro said to me, non-refundable minutes and positive mentality always, PMA. And they're big things he lives by. So I met Bobby in LA. He's a billionaire. He sold his healthcare business for over $1 billion with his wife. Owns a property portfolio of $750 million.
Wow.
So full on. And I resonate with that because it's so hard in business. One negative.
Yep.
We struggle with our own negative thoughts.
Yeah.
Right? Can I do this? Is it good enough? Is it, can I, all these thoughts that we have when we come up with ideas or when we're doing something in business, when it might not be going the right way, we're already thinking about our negative thoughts ourselves, and we need positive people to help us to push them out.
I was having this show. I had a meeting with my accountant. Shout out to my accountant. Had a meeting with me this morning at 6 a.m. Drove over from Manly. So, Danny, love you. What accountant has a meeting at 6 a.m.? My man. And we were kind of laughing about it. Whereas there was a period there for like the last 6 months before we got into here where I was having meetings with my accountants. I'm like, you've just got to trust me. Like, I know that this thing's it's gonna work. Like, you guys are just gonna back me. And Danny was like, man, like, I don't know. This is pretty far out. And even Chloe was there. And I remember having those conversations, then walking away with myself and then having to convince myself and be like, shit, like, am I actually going to be able to pull this off? But you've just got to back yourself.
Yeah, it's hard. But if it was easy, everybody would be doing it.
This is true. And then, so number one, AI /technology. Number two, network around you. And I'm assuming you said sounding board, that a bigger part of that is your partner.
Yeah, of course.
That's a huge one. And then what would your number three be?
Just going back to your partner, it's so important that the person that you choose to spend your life with is the most supporting person to you. You need your best friend.
Yeah.
I can't elaborate how much that's affected my life. I've had the both spectrums before in my life, the good, the great and the bad, and not having that positive impact at home plays a massive role.
Huge.
I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for my wife.
I love that. That's beautiful.
And she's my best mate.
Oh, stop.
I can't. Yeah, well, I was actually talking to a friend this morning, and they were talking about one of the boys. They were hiding something from the wife, and I'm like, that's your best mate.
Yuck.
Why wouldn't you tell? That's the first person I talk to. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like, anyway, so look, those two, and I really have to say, put in the work.
Hard work.
Yeah, you can't, you won't get anywhere without putting in the work.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be easy.
No.
So don't give up.
It's never easy. You get knocked down more times than you actually succeed. You just got to keep getting up. I've got this theory about business. It's not the smartest person in the room. It's the person that's willing to continue to try again after being knocked down over and over again, and willingness to keep growing. That's going to win. It's the resilience that it comes from.
Yep.
So we've talked about your wife. What about your kids, bro? Like, you've got all these things going on in your business, and you got your family. How do you find the juggle between business and then also running a family at the same time?
Oh, look, it's difficult. I've got a split family, so I've got two daughters to my previous, which I get once a fortnight and half the school holidays. Now my eldest, one out of the two, God love her, she spent 12 months in ICU when she was born. She had 6 open heart surgeries, a tracheostomy. At one point, they didn't think she was going to live. It was the hardest thing of my life at that time. Now she's 11. She's doing well. And my youngest one is 7. And then I've got my son too, 9 months. It's hard to juggle. And I have to be constantly reminded by my wife about commitments that we've got and things that we're doing. But when I spend time with them, I try my best to push everything from the business away. And having that life balance is always a juggling act.
Always.
You'll know that.
Yep.
But you have to just do your best.
Yeah. I always found like that whenever more so in the past when like I was so like you're so embedded into what you're doing for the business because you're trying so hard to get a future for your family. And I found when I was at work, I felt like I was letting down my family. When I was with my family, I felt like I was letting down my work. And that was the hardest thing, especially in that startup phase where you're really just grinding. And something can pop up. Like right now, you had to go.
Yeah.
You had to go. And that was a really difficult part. But I'd always just fall back on everything I'm doing. I know that I'm doing to benefit their future. Yeah. So that's the kind of thing that got me through and gets me through now. But that's not to say I'm perfect because I still find times where like I'll be doing something with kids and I'll get like snappy because I'm thinking about something that's going on at work. That's the hard part, leaving that at the door.
I think, look, I think it's hard because you know yourself. When you've got a business, sometimes something happens and you don't know where you're going to get the money from to pay wages. Or something's happened that's huge in your business life that feels like the end of the world. I remember coming home to my wife and, mate, you might not think it, but I'd come home, I'd cry to my wife and I'd be like, fuck, how am I going to do this?
Yep.
Like, I've got this big tax bill, I've got wages to pay, Christmas is coming, where am I going to find the work from? Yep. You'd let it all out, and I have to say that's where I said before about that supporting partner. She'd be like, "Don't worry, it's all right. You can do this. You've done it before. You've been here before. And for whatever reason, I get up earlier the next day. Normally it's 2:30. Now I'm getting up at 2:00, and you just keep going, right?
Yep. You have those moments where like you break down, and then the next day it's just like, I've just got to get up and go again. And that's what defines a successful from those people that fail, is because they give up. Because we all go through the hard times, which is about getting up and then going again, especially when you got to do it for your kids as well. I had that exact, as soon as you said it, I had that moment. I haven't actually done a proper podcast, which I will, about this exact moment. So we had a pre-approved loan for this place and it fell through. And we had already signed this lease and engaged the builder. Right. So I was locked in and we're at dinner and my accountant, who I was just talking about before, called us and said that it had fallen through and we had no way of funding this whole thing. And I remember Chloe got up and she goes, I'm going to go speak to my parents. And my son came up and I remember I had dinner in front of me. I pushed the plate away from me. And my son, and we're very strange. We've got this weird intuition with each other. He just came up and put his hand on my shoulder and just goes, thank you so much for everything you do for me, Dad.
Oh.
I know.
In that moment.
In that moment, bro. Bro, I was a mess. I was just sitting there and I remember I just hugged him. And Chloe went off, did her thing, and I'm going to do a full podcast on this one day as well with Chloe, because the pressures that people don't understand, like people like you and me, right? We don't get scared by risk. No. We're willing to put a lot of pressure on our family, which we don't realize because we think it's on us. Yeah. Because we're chasing a dream. But people don't realize how much business owners put on the line. They think, they're killing it. They see the tip of the iceberg of the success that they're having and think that's all easy. But really those 10, 12, 15-year grind and those moments where you're crying to your wife, my son's putting his hand. This is last year, bro. This is June? No, it would have been a bit early. No, it would have been around June 2023. Yeah. That happened. And we were, and those are the moments that define you.
Well, they see what you've built now, but they don't see the blood, sweat and tears that it's taken you to build what you have now. Yeah. And when you talk about that with your son, I mean, geez, my eyes start watering up because I think we work so hard and people see you as I don't know. They have a view or an opinion of you, right? Perspective of you, of me. But then they also don't realise that in that moment that your son touched you, that broke you.
Broke me.
And that's the reason why you do what you do and you take the risks for your family, But yeah, look, it's not easy.
No, it's not. Now, this is honestly the hardest question, but I pre-warned you about this one, so hopefully you're ready. When it's all said and done, what do you want your kids to remember you by?
Look, I want to leave some type of legacy, not just for my kids, but for everybody that I encounter or I touch. I'm a big thing on just being kind. And I really, the thing that makes me sleep easy at night is that I know that tomorrow could be my day and I might not be here. And I'm okay with that because I know that every day that I get up and I do something nice for somebody and I don't tell anybody. And it's just because I want to do that. So I want to leave behind for my kids. And my girls said it to me one weekend when I picked them up, Dad, you're a beautiful man. I want to be that beautiful, hardworking, loyal man for my kids. And I want them to remember me by that. Not for the possessions, not for the things that I've done and had to endure, not for my tattoos. I mean, it's funny, covered in tats, people think you're a bikie, drug dealer. I'm far from that. Right?
No, you're far from it.
Far from it.
But you look like it.
And that's okay, because I got my tattoos because they all mean something to me. I didn't get them because I wanted to portray myself as somebody, right? And the other thing that I say is, at the end of the day, my wife knows who I am. My kids know who I am. Everybody that works for me knows who I am, that kind, caring. You know who I am, and that's why I sleep easy at night. It's not, it's not what you see. It's not what you see. That doesn't define a person. But just to hear my girls, say how much they love me, and how kind I am. When I do something, I'll give you an example. I did something at Miranda last week. There was a guy trying to raise some money for cancer, just a bloke with a store, and there's a donut place there, really good donuts.
Yeah,
they're the gluten-free donuts. You see that one?
Yeah, G-free, yeah.
And I was ordering donuts, and I had my two girls there, and I saw the bloke, and I thought he wasn't very loud. He wasn't drawing much attention to himself. People aren't,
engaging.
Yeah, engaging. So anyway, I ordered donuts for us, and we ate our donuts. And I just thought, you know what? I went back. I bought 3 donuts for the bloke in a little box, and I gave him the donuts. And and I gave him whatever change I had in my pocket. I put in there, and I told him to have a blessed day. And he wanted to have a conversation, so I just chatted for a few minutes, and then I walked off with my girls, and both my girls said to me, Sienna said to me, she goes, that was really kind of you. I said, you know what? That's what you need to do.
Yeah.
There's so many bad people in this world. It doesn't cost anything to be kind.
My dad used to always say to me, whenever there's something, you got yourself into an altercation and you had to get out of it, he goes, just kill him with kindness.
Yeah.
Kill him with kindness.
Yeah.
Use that all my life.
Yeah. And you know what? It's the best because sometimes people are going through a bad day themselves. I mean, I had a gentleman a couple of years ago, road rage incident, and I pulled over and he pulled over behind me and he got out of the car. And I don't get out of the car. My dad always told me, don't get out of the car because as soon as you get out of the car,
it's going off.
So I wind down the window. I just looked at the bloke. Mind you, I'm covered in tattoos. And I said, mate, are you all right? Have you had a bad day? And the guy started crying. His daughter was diagnosed with cancer. Oh. She was in Westmead. And I've had my daughter in ICU for over 12 months. I know how hard that is. I've seen kids die while I was in there. And I just said, I got out of the car, I gave the bloke a hug. I said, it's all right, mate. Have faith. I said, look, he said, oh, you cut me off. I said, look, I apologise for that. But just in that moment, and just asked if he was okay. So he had that build-up, And I think a lot of people don't realise that.
We talk about often, it's in the book, How to Win Friends and Influence Them. And Paddy always uses an analogy when you're going to something confrontational like that. If you come up with guns up, they're going to come with the guns up.
Yeah.
But if you come with your guns down, hands up, it changes it straight away. And that's a good, not only for life, but for business as well. When customers or clients, they bark back at you, if you go back and you, rather than straight away, because I know what I'm like with my ego, you want to emotionally react. But if you can take a step back and you can look at it from their point of view, address where you went wrong or whatever it may be. You know, you said, oh, I'm sorry for that. That's my fault. Straight away, their guns to go down, your guns to go down, and you can turn a negative moment into a positive moment.
That's
like
right.
you did.
You can't deal with emotion.
Nah.
You have to, as hard as it is, and I think that's the number one thing in business that you need to conquer first.
Your own emotions.
Is don't make decisions based on emotions.
Yeah.
Because you'll lose not only that client today, you'll lose him for tomorrow, and every other person that he's dealt with, you'll lose that.
Yeah.
You know? And yeah, I think that's a massive one. Huge.
Well, Chris, that was a fantastic podcast. I greatly appreciate you giving me your time to come in and speak today, and I look forward to doing more business with you over the future. Actually, I'll talk to you about that after this.
Yeah.
All right, brother.
Thank you, mate. Thank you.